Welcome to the Dads on a Map Hidden Gem Super Show. I'm James.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jason.
It's Sanchez.
And I'm Cameron. Thanks for listening to our show.
Yes, you heard right. The collaboration the world was asking for. We're rolling 5 strong tonight. The dream team, if you will. Dads on a Map and Hidden Gems together in a simulcast of sorts.
Yes.
So what are we going to do here today, fellas?
Yeah. Before we get into that, I just want to quickly say, James, Sanchez, thanks so much for having us on the podcast. This is a pretty huge moment for us. This is our first collaborative effort in a podcast, so this is a really huge deal for us. We're honored that you would have us on, and you set the bar really high. Dream team. We will try not to disappoint anybody for sure. Really excited about what we're going to be talking about today, all things board games. Just exciting moment for us as a podcast. We appreciate it. So, Sanchez, what do we have on deck today?
So we thought we'd start off with a little bit of an open panel question and answer session with each other. Try to get to know each other a little bit more. Talk about the state of the hobby, our shows, podcasting woes, all those awesome things.
That's right. And then maybe do a review Hidden Gem style of a Dads on a Map favorite, I believe. Portobello Market, right?
Oh, it's a favorite, all right. The Domers are going to love that one.
We'll see if it's a favorite of the Hidden Gems team.
We will. And then finally, a little nonsense. I thought we would square off in a trivia game show, a thing we've done here and there over time in our shows. This one's going to be called Podcast Clash, and I have tapped a friend of both shows, Dylan St. Clair. He's going to be our special host for that. That'll be a little later on today, though.
But before we get to that, we thought we would just take a little bit of time, get to know each other, and introduce ourselves to each other's audiences. Chris, would you like to go first?
Yeah, for sure. I'll kick us off. My name is Chris Alley. I'm 39 years old and originally from Asheville, North Carolina. That's in the western part of the state. Since this is the Dads on a Map podcast, figure I should talk a little bit about my family. I've been married for 16 years to my wife, Talia. And if you're curious about what kind of games she's into and her thoughts on games, we actually have her on episode 10 of our podcast, so you can check that out. Talia and I have 4 boys aged 8 to 15, and I can proudly say that I am the parent of 4 esports nerds. They all compete competitively in online gaming, and my oldest son, Bryce, actually just signed a contract for a pro team playing Valorant. So we stay
Sweet.
quite
Maybe
busy.
he can help fund the podcast then. Right?
Maybe so. I hope so.
He'll be your sponsor.
Take care of me when I get old. Yeah, they're super into esports, and I love it. And then lastly, real quick, I'm a physician. I work as a pathologist at Duke University and the VA Medical Center in Durham, North Carolina.
Very cool. I'll jump in next. My name is James Geist. I'm one half of the tandem that is Dads on a Map. We started the show in 2019. Basically, we just wanted a show that kind of represented things that maybe we didn't hear in the podcasts we were listening to every day, which is a common thread I think we're going to see between all of us. I live in the Kansas City area in a suburb, Overland Park, Kansas, and I have 2 boys, 11 and 9, and my lovely wife of 17 years. I play a ton of games with them around the table. They help support the podcast by helping me get games on the table and talking about them. My kids are savages. I've raised them to play auction games, Knizias, cube rails, and they will take it to me. They love to gang up on Dad and beat me, and it's awesome. I love playing that way. And then when I'm playing online with some of our listeners as well, that's the kind of stuff I love to play there too, right? We like to play highly interactive, what some people may call mean games, where you get to take it to each other and may the best person win. That's a little bit about me. On to Jason.
Yeah, so I am a software engineer, nerd through and through, and married to my beautiful wife, Jenny, without whom I wouldn't be a dad, to 3 kids, 9, 7, and 5, boy, girl, boy. And they love games as well. I've been getting into it with my oldest, he'll jump right in on the heaviest stuff I can throw at him. We've been enjoying exploring the landscape of board games together. As a family, we enjoy doing a lot of traveling. We actually just got back from Maine, and we're on a mission to try to get to all the national parks in the U.S. sometime before our kids get out of the house. We'll see if we actually manage to accomplish that. But it's a little bit about me. How about you, Sanchez?
All right, let's see. Where do I start? So my dad's status is I have a mine, hers, our situation. So I have how many kids? I have 4 kids. It's just so many of them. I have a 3-year-old. I have a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 16-year-old. A lot of high school right now, and then a little 3-year-old that just wrecking my life because she wants mommy all the time right now. I grew up in West Texas, so if you know where Odessa is or you watch the famous movie Friday Night Lights, that's where I came from. Went to Baylor University family. I came up to Dallas. I live currently in Little Elm, Texas, which is this little city north of DFW. I've been in education now for about 16 years. I work on a high school campus. Board gaming has been a part of my life for a while now. I was looking for a way to connect with my kids. I kind of went through obviously a little divorce, and I was looking for something to do with my kids that was not screen time. That's where Catan came into our lives, and then Ticket to Ride and all that stuff. So my kids right now, the girls, they love Flux, which is great. I love Flux too, if they love Flux. And then we play a lot of Love Letter. Their gaming taste, I'm trying to cultivate what they like. But you know what? If they're willing to play a game with me, I will take every minute of that because they enjoy it and like beating me. I have, I guess, an exciting announcement. I'm just going to announce right now. We went for a car trip, 11 days. We went all the way to San Diego, Vegas, came back. That's 3,600 miles by myself and my family. But I asked Monica to marry me. So now, fiance?
Sanchez,
Wow.
hold on. I
Congrats.
didn't even know that, man.
Congrats.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you. When you get divorced, you're like, never again. But you know what? Let's do this. So I am now, what's the word? I don't even know anymore. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I just said, hey, let's do this. Yeah, engaged. There we go. Hey, just do this. Let's do this for the rest of our lives, legally. And, I mean, there's a little bit more romantic than that. But yeah, so now I'm back on the married status, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats.
All right,
Yeah,
Cameron.
how do you follow that up? So my name is Cameron Lockey. I'm married to my lovely bride, Casey. I am a father to a son who's due to be born at the end of next month. So I grew up on the coast of North Carolina near Atlantic Beach and have called the Raleigh-Durham area home since 2010. I work full-time as a software engineer and am currently in the process of starting up a woodworking business, making furniture and processing lumber. Of course, right now I'm mostly in the business of making shop furniture and buying tools. But it's still a lot of fun. I mostly play board games with Chris and some of my closest friends, but I got my start back in 2012 around the same time Chris did, playing D&D. We got into D&D pretty deep and had a lot of fun doing that for years. Started there and now I am a podcast contributor and I play board games all the time that I've never played before. It's an awesome thing.
I believe you can call yourself an influencer. It's just allowed. Like, that's just the rules, right? You guys have influenced me. So there's at least one person who's bought a game because of you. So as far as I'm concerned, we're all influencers.
That's
in
right.
some way.
We're
So
maybe reviewers. Maybe not.
maybe. So a bunch of dads, a bunch of guys here who obviously love board games because we're here talking about board games on this summer evening, right? I thought it would be a blast to do an open panel Q&A with each other. We've listened to each other talk on our own respective shows. We've had a chance to chat a little bit with each other, but this lets us get deeper into things. So I kind of visualize we're at a con, right? Someday we'll all be at a con again, and we're up on stage, right? It's Hidden Gems and Dads on a Map, and the listeners, the massive audience of people is asking us questions. Well, they're not here, and they probably wouldn't be there either. So we're just gonna have to take care of the questions ourselves tonight. So I'm gonna start us out. Let's talk about podcast goals.
Yes.
I know when we started Dads on a Map, all we ever really were after was community. And I can truly say we have achieved that and then some. We're about to host our first live convention with 20 some odd people from around the United States that all interact with each other because of our show. And they're going to gather in Kansas City for 4 days of gaming.
Very cool.
And that, to me, that's the gift the podcast has given me, honestly. So we've achieved that goal. And sometimes it's hard to keep our eyes forward and keep going because I can say, like, I'm very content with the state of how things are, right? So what do you guys hope to achieve through your show, other than, of course, just spreading the good word of Hidden Gem Games? I'll throw to Chris first and see what you guys have to say about this.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's an awesome question. I would say the goals that you just mentioned are very similar to ours. Obviously, we want people to know about these lesser known games. I won't spend too much time on that, but I do feel like that modern board game hobby is very fixated upon the hotness. So it's nice to have a few voices out there that talk about games that really deserve a little bit more love and I think people would enjoy. But the biggest thing for me is what you just mentioned, and that's the community. We never really had any aspirations of this becoming our new job or replacing what we do daily, but we did want to form a community, and that's happening. One of the things that I'm most proud of in doing this podcast is our Board Game Geek Guild has really grown and has become a place where people can come and just share their love of gaming and share their love of hidden gems. Right now, I checked just a little bit ago, actually, and we gained a couple more guild members. We're up to 72 in our BGG Guild, and it's pretty active. So if that sounds interesting to you, we'd love for people to come on and share games that they like that don't necessarily get talked about daily, and just share that community. There's one particular forum in our guild called Gem Miners Wanted, and super proud of that. It's a treasure trove of games that really need to be explored more. Those are just a few things that really give me a lot of satisfaction that have come out of this podcast.
I feel like we're learning things from some of those forums in the guild.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There are people in our guild. I thought I knew a lot about board games, and they know way more than I do. I mean, just some really impressive knowledge on that guild for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say my favorite thing about this podcast, and the goal that I had when Chris was like, let's do a podcast about games that people don't always talk about and don't always play. And I'm like looking at Chris's shelves, and I'm like, what about some of these? So it's given us a chance to dig through some of those and get those to hit the table, which has been a lot of fun to figure out what games does Chris have and are they good?
Yeah, I think I would just add, for me, I think a big part of it is just the thrill of the search, right? I love finding that new thing, or I guess in this case, it's not a new thing most of the time, but that thing that somebody else hasn't ever heard about, and being able to introduce them to that and say, look, I found this awesome new game or this awesome new show or whatever it is, and be able to introduce people to that and be able to share in their experience of it for the first time. I really enjoy that aspect of the show, just being able to search for new things that, you know, I can introduce to the guys on the show and also to our audience, and then get feedback on how people are enjoying it.
You guys do a really great job of introducing the game, whatever the game is, right? Chris does the best rules teach I've ever heard, and that's in audio format, which is a lot of times very difficult to understand, but it comes through to me. There's been so many games that I hear you talk about, and I'm like, ooh. And even if you didn't like it, like Money by Reiner Knizia, it didn't get great marks from you guys. But listening to you explain the game, I'm in my car driving, and I can visualize the exchange of the cards and everything, and I'm like, ooh, I got to try that, right? Like, I got to try that. So kudos to you guys. I think you do a really great job with your format and how you present the games. And it really does engage from a listener side about the game itself.
Yeah, I have
James.
long said that Chris is probably the best person that I've ever heard teach games. And not only that, he's a good coach. So for those members of our audience, you'll know that I actually taught my first game this past episode. And this doesn't come through in the episode, but Chris walked me through all of the things that I needed to hit and how to phrase things and so forth, so that it sounded like I was mimicking his excellent game teaching style. It was really Chris pulling the levers behind the curtain there.
Through some gentle hand holding and the power of editing, I was able to make you sound like a genius.
So I think what we're seeing here is an untapped market that Chris can get into. We have Rodney and Watch It Played, right? Teaching us how to play the game. But now we can have Chris who teaches you how to teach the game.
That's right.
Totally different market.
Yeah,
Niche.
while you're driving.
I love it.
Yeah.
Like while you're driving.
Awesome. So you guys want to move on to the next question here?
Sure. Yep.
I'm really excited to hear y'all's thoughts on this one. I have strong feelings here, but I'm going to let everybody else answer first. So I didn't really mention this when I was introducing myself. I think I did a bad job at this, but I've been playing hobby board games since around 2006, I think is when I played Catan for the first time, Carcassonne. But I wouldn't say I've been a quote unquote committed hobby gamer until about 2012. That's when it really got serious for me. And I can honestly say that in all the time that I've been playing board games, especially since around 2012, I've seen the hobby grow. It's evolved and it's changed in interesting ways, for sure. So all that to say, looking back on your time in the hobby to now, how do you feel about the state of the hobby today? Sanchez, why don't you start us off?
Oh, man. So I've been thinking about this question for a while. I think for me personally, when I first jumped into it, it was this vast ocean of games, right? It was like, oh, I want this game and I want this game. And you're reading the top 10 list, the top 100 list. Like, oh, okay, I need to get these. I need to check these off. You are in this acquisition phase, right? And then I think what happens with everybody when you become a student of a hobby, you start to hone in on what you like or what you're trying to study or what interests you, right? And all of a sudden you start to see the flaws of the field, right? All of a sudden, Kickstarter doesn't really interest me anymore. I do not look at Kickstarter things, period. The only time I do look at a Kickstarter, if it's a redo of a game that I have or I like Age of Steam. Age of Steam is like a perfect example, right? I loved Age of Steam. When it came on Kickstarter, I was 100% on board, like first day, first hour buy, right? But I'm not looking at Kickstarter anymore to find new games. You reach this point where you're like, I know what I want and I know what I like. You get to a point where you're just like, I don't need all this, or I enjoyed these games, but now I'm looking for very specific games. And now I only buy like a game once a month, if that. And I'm very selective now what I buy. I don't need to buy a game once a week, which I'm sure we've all done at one point in time, right? So I think
at least.
Yeah. So I think, has the state of board gaming always been as crowded as this? And now you just filter it out? I mean, that's where I'm at in my gaming career. James, what do you think?
My first instinct when this question comes up, what is the state of board gaming, is to say, God, there's all this excess and expansions and add-on and bloat. But you know what? It's been there for a while, right? So I think exactly what Sanchez said. I think the journey is very important in board games. And I only started playing in 2016. That's not that long ago. But I ran the gamut of this journey. I bought everything. I had to have it all. Back in the Kickstarters, you got to buy everything. You got to buy the expansions for everything you just bought before you've ever even touched the game, right? You just need it. You need it and need it and need it. And I feel like that's an important part. It's an important part because it allows you to have that discovery phase where you then move into the next phase, which is finding out what you do like. And once you find out what you do like, I think, and for me personally, you do start to weed out the things that you don't like. They don't spark joy. They don't provide you with the experience that you come to board games for. And so I want it to go back to a simpler time from whence I have not been, because I started playing in 2016. I don't know what it was like when modern art came out in 1995. I don't know what it was like when Puerto Rico was #1 on BGG Top 100. But now where I am as a gamer, that's what I want. I want simplicity. I want simple rule sets. 2 sheets, two pieces of paper, front and back, that give me the entire rule set, where the players are the game. Interaction, that's where I am. And interaction is what died a little bit. But games from Reiner Knizia, games from the 90s and 2000s that just did things simpler and relied on the players to create the interaction. And then that extends further into the subgenre of cube rails. So I like that Capstone, the Iron Rails system, is really pushing those into the forefront, because that is the kind of game that I think not only is terrific, but it sparks something in people that will make them then go backwards. And that's what I like. That's where Hidden Gems thrives, right? We're looking back instead of forward. And I like that.
I think I would probably echo a lot of what you guys have already said, but I think the current state it's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? There is a benefit to the fact that you have so many games coming out every year, and it's driving this massive resurgence of interest in the board game hobby, right? So you have so many new people getting involved and so many new people getting excited about the hobby, and that's amazing to see, right? It's really awesome to see the community growing and the number of people who are not just seeing board games as monopoly and life anymore, and seeing that take off. And that leads to refinement in the industry too. I think we're seeing some really solid games come out of that are built off the foundation of the gaming hobby as it's been up until now. But the other side of that blade is that you also have a glut of a ton of, there's thousands of games coming out every year, and there's just no way to keep up with it. You guys have been saying all along, as I've grown in exploring the hobby and really figured out what really appeals to me, a lot of that newer, shinier stuff is a lot less appealing. But I think it is about that journey, right? And really figuring out what you love to do in the hobby and then focusing in on that and taking advantage of it.
I feel like I might be the one contributor here that I actually don't own a lot of games. I probably have under 15 games. And in part because the main person that I play games with is you guys, and I play your games.
Chris has more than enough for all of us.
That's right. But on the other hand, I think the thought that I had just thinking about the state of the hobby is a little bit of what you hit on there, Jason. I've never had an issue being into nerdy stuff because I've just always been me. And what I've noticed about the board game hobby in general is that there's been this shift from, oh, you're into board games, to sweet, what games you're into. The breadth of people that are enjoying modern board games and are discovering this wealth of games from the past is becoming more and more broad as the hobby becomes more popular. And it has shifted from this thing of, oh, that's just for a very certain nerdy type of person, to anybody could be interested. And what you find when you start digging into the board game community is that everyone's response is, come on in, the water's fine. And I love that.
Awesome responses. Yeah, I have to say this has been very therapeutic for me. Knowing I'm not the only one that has these thoughts, especially from you, James and Sanchez. Awesome to hear your thoughts about this. I have to say for me personally, at the risk of sounding very get off my lawn, like I would say that I feel this rush towards complexity. I'm just going to get right to the point here. I feel like games today, especially games in the last 6, 7, 8 years, there's just this overwhelming rush towards more bits, more chits, more tracks, more stuff, more rules. You know, if your rule book isn't the size of a Denny's restaurant menu, it's not a good game, right? On Mars, really any Lacerda for that matter. Lost Ruins of Arnak, Praga Caput Regni. I'm not saying these games are necessarily bad. I think the point that I'm making is that we do seem to be rushing towards more and more complexity. And I get it. I was that way when I first started out too. It's very similar to James and Sanchez. It's new, it's fresh, it's exciting. You want to experience it. You kind of jump in the deep end. And I found that I've really cooled over the years. And I expect a lot more people will as well. I just hate seeing that it seems like a lot of games that are made now, it's just full of bloat stuff, rules, things, you know, and I feel like you can have just as good of an experience, if not better, with these more simple, elegant designs, mostly because they're just easier to get to the table, to be quite honest. That was the biggest thing for me.
Not as big of a commitment.
I was talking to James before the show started, and I just let my copy of Feudum go, and I'm this close, and Jason knows how hard this is for me to do, but I am this close to letting all my Lacerdas go because they just don't get played. I mean, if you don't play it again within 2 weeks, everybody's forgotten the rules. It's another hour teach.
You're watching people's eyes glaze over as you're teaching it.
Yep.
People who are normally more than willing to play standard games.
Yep. And that's one more point I wanted to make is I was telling James this before too. A key moment in my gaming career, and you'll probably remember this, Jason, we were on our board game retreat and you were teaching On Mars. It was me, you, and Baglio.
I remember this clearly.
He was falling asleep. We were like 45 minutes in. He's falling asleep. And I remember you and I just locked eyes as he was sleeping at the table. And I was like, man, is this even fun anymore?
I'm like, don't worry. We only have 20 more minutes of rules.
Yeah, it was like a scary moment. That's when I really reevaluated my likes and started getting towards these simpler games. And I hope that the hobby resets and goes that way, but I don't know.
You get to a point where you're at that table, right? You're sitting there with your 45-minute teach of On Mars, and you realize we could have just played Spectaculum
Twice.
and Bites in the time that we taught this game that nobody's excited about playing anymore. And so it's so tough, right? I don't like to rail on these games because people are very defensive of their beloved, as we all are. There is a place for those games, but there's a place in my past for those games at that point.
The bigger the game, the bigger the mechanisms, the bigger the rules doesn't necessarily make it the best game ever. It's all about having fun. It's all about having interactions. It's all about having good times and finding those good moments in the game. Games like On Mars, where the rulebook's huge and you're doing this edge case and this edge case. Some people are totally into that, because they like to explore the mechanisms of all the interactions of all those rules. For me and James, we just want a one-pager and we have a good time.
Yeah, you make a good point in saying people want to explore those mechanisms and really dive into the strategy. That assumes that more mechanisms equals more strategy, right? And I think that that's not always necessarily the case.
Amen.
You know, there are plenty of simple games, Spectaculum being a fine example of that we've played, that it has such deep strategy. But I feel like the problem with those longer games that I've run into is that I might get On Mars to the table once, ever. I've played a full game of it once. And I guess for folks who have more time on their hands and have that ability to really invest 10 plays into On Mars, you might be really diving deep into that strategy. But for me, if I know I'm only going to play a game once, I'm probably fumbling my way through it and not even really grasping the strategy. Whereas I can play a game that is simpler and I'll get in trouble saying this, but might have deeper strategy to it, really, when you've played it multiple times and you've played it 10 times with somebody and can really dive into the nuances of the strategy.
Yeah,
like
you understand it.
There's so much more richness there for me personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think this question could be its own super show. I mean, honestly, I'm going to push us along because we have a lot of show, but we really could. I think we could sit here and talk about this for 2 hours.
I just want to say that's why Go is amazing. Simple rules, super deep. And that's why it's around for thousands of years. Go.
So what do we have up next? Jason, I think you're asking the next question.
Yeah, so you guys have mentioned on your show, you guys are pretty deep into the 18xx and coin realm of the gaming hobby. Speaking of heavier games, that's certainly on that end of the spectrum, but it is a genre, right? So you've learned most of them with a couple minor rules differences here and there. The guys here at Hidden Gems, we've explored 18xx and coin a little bit, but we're just sort of starting to get our feet wet with that. Talk a little bit more about how you guys got into that, what draws you to it, and yeah, just talk a little bit more about your experience with it.
Sanchez, you want to take coin first?
Okay, so I think I was actually listening to a podcast. I can't remember which one, but they were talking about coin, about how the factions were asymmetrical powers and how it was mimicking a political or historical event. And as I was listening to the description and I was listening to what these different factions do and how they interact on the board, I'm like, man, that sounds really interesting. So obviously, I started researching about what was coin, what happens, what do the games do, and then I realized it's a system, just like Age of Steam. You learn one, you kind of learn what the basics are, and then every other game is just a little tweak on what a faction does or what an action does, and you get to play multiple scenarios, multiple backgrounds, multiple historical events, and coin just became this super easy genre to get into if you can just learn one. I learned Cuba Libre, right? Which is supposedly the beginner coin game that you get into. It was this eye-opening thing. Once you get to vocabulary, the world of coin just opens up. And I'm sure James is going to say the same thing about 18xx. You learn one,
Yep.
and all of a sudden, you can master a whole bunch of different games as long as you get the vocabulary, you get the terms, you get the actions, and just expands on this historical background where you learn these historical events and you get to interact and figure out, can we rewrite history? Can we make it different? I think if you're willing to learn one, the world opens up in front of you. And that's worth it to me. You know what I'm saying? I love that. James?
Yeah, we have two sideshows for Dads on a Map. We have the Choo Choo Crew, that's all 18xx and cube rails, and we have the Coin Collectors, it's all coin. And the Coin Collectors, which is Tyler, Mark, Tom, and Phil, they do an amazing job. Each episode is like a mini movie about the game because they literally teach you the entire game up front. Not like a Chris Teach where it's every rule, but they will lay out what's happening in the game, who the different factions are, how they compete with each other. And then Tom creates these narratives where he'll literally retell the play of the game through a news bulletin style report with sound effects and everything. They have so much cool stuff going on. I'm so happy to have them doing what they're doing for games that I still haven't even touched. I haven't even got to touch coin games yet, probably because I'm so far down the train tunnel. You know?
Shame, James. Shame. So much shame.
So
man. Come on.
That leads me to the trains. And it's really similar to coin. If you play your first 18xx and you play something that its roots are strong in the genre, like I would recommend 1830, to me, the best game ever made. And it is, once you play it, you know how to play 30 titles, like 30 titles, right? If you're a heavy Euro fan, imagine if you could play one Lacerda and then play all of them. That is an enriching experience, right? Because you gain that knowledge and then you use it in other games where all you're changing is the map, maybe a little goofy rule here with a train. Maybe you're switching out the private companies that affect the start of the game. The rabbit hole is insanely deep.
How many times, James, have you called me and say, hey, we need another person for this 18xx? And I'm just like, well, I don't know the rules. He's like, no, dude, it's only like 2 different rule changes. Just get on and play. And it ends up to like 3-hour games. Can you imagine, hey, I'm going to teach you a game, 5 minutes, and then it's a 3-hour experience. It turns out really amazing because you know the base rules. So that's our 100% endorsement of coin and 18xx. Learn one game, bam, doors open.
Yeah, I do have to say something because I just spent the previous question saying I only want to play short games with 2-page rule books. And now I'm saying I only want to play 4-hour 18xx games.
Oh my God, that sounds like cognitive dissonance. Are you okay?
Cognitive dissonance in spades. So here's the deal. If the juice is worth the squeeze, I will play any length of game.
Agreed.
And that's what 18xx brings to the table.
100%.
It is engaging through the entire experience. The 18xx games I like are you can stay alive through 85% of the game, right? You're always in it. So I just want to say that is the overarching mantra I want to live by in board games. I'll play any length of game if the juice is worth the squeeze, right?
There we go. There we go. All right. So now we hit the main core of Dominum. Let's look at the hidden gem. Let's see if we get some background information on this, okay? So you guys have talked on your show about mining the BGG ranks, right? For these gems. is there a magic formula that you look for? Is it like 6.7 and it has to be from 2007 or earlier?
It
What
only
is
has
the-
like 12 ranks.
Yeah,
you know?
like what is the magic recipe that you guys are using to pick the games that you guys pick on your show?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So there is a secret formula, but we can't tell you because then we would have to
Oh,
shoot
Coca-Cola. You're pulling the Coca-Cola card.
you. No, I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. So I mentioned earlier that thrill of the search is something that really appeals to me. And so when Chris brought this idea forward of, hey, let's do a podcast about games that nobody knows about, I was like, yes, that's perfect for me. That's exactly what I want to do. And so I was thinking, what is the best way to make sure that we find all of them? And so I started iterating through every ID on Board Game Geek and very quickly realized that was going to take forever. So Cameron and I worked together and built a miniature screen scraper, basically, that would pull data from Board Game Geek into a spreadsheet that we could look through. And so we've been slowly working our way through that. It's still going to take a long time, but it's faster than going one by one. Really, when we're looking at these, it's a little bit by feel, I have to admit, right? There are a couple parameters that we go by. I'm generally not looking at anything that's ranked less than 1,000. I'm trying to look for things that have at least 15 to 20 ratings. If it has 1 rating, but somebody rated it an 8, there's probably something going on there. And then I'm looking at anything that's rated 5 or more. And at that point, that usually narrows the list down pretty far for a given chunk. And so at that point, I'm kind of going through by feel and looking at different stats of the game, maybe the playtime or the number of players or the names of them. Sometimes you can just tell it's an expansion or it's a war game that's not really the style for our show. And at that point, then I'm going through ID by ID and just checking out games, looking at reviews, seeing what other people had to say about it. A lot of times I'll flip through and somebody will write a random post that's like, hey, I played this and it was a hidden gem. I found that multiple times throughout browsing BGG. And then we jot it down on our endless spreadsheet that we'll never get through. And
Sometimes it's just the cost of the game.
on we go.
I have a Word document that I've been working on of potential game episode titles or themes, ideas, and assigning games to those. And the last time I worked on it, which was a couple of days ago, it was 23 pages long, and I think it's probably got easily over 100 episodes of just
Oh my God.
different ideas and things that we have in mind if we make it that far. But it's just endless. The rabbit hole is endless for sure.
The sky's
like,
the limit, right?
Yeah,
right.
it does. Like, it's crazy because, like, you said, oh, we have a screen scraper. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are like hacking the Gibson to get getting gems. If you ever watched Hackers. So actually, let me ask this question. So you find a game you like, right? How much effort do you go to acquire that game? What does that process look like?
Yeah, I'll take this one because I
Okay.
usually am the one that ends up acquiring them because I'm obsessed with acquiring games.
Well, 90% of them already have Chris's name next to them in the spreadsheet. So I'm like, oh, well, okay, moving on.
Sometimes I have them already. My wife hates the fact that I own almost 1,000 games. Yeah, I have a big game room that houses my collection. So in the process, when Jason forms this big spreadsheet, I go through the listing of games and I see if I've heard of them. And a lot of them I have because I've been pretty aggressively listening to board game media for the last 10 to 12 years. And so you just hear about games over years. And if I've heard about it and I've heard pretty favorable stuff about it, that will basically make the decision for me. Am I going to go about trying to acquire this if it's reasonable? And that can be a big sticking point because games like Strasbourg, which is probably at this point my favorite game of all time, it's moved up and up in my rankings. It's definitely my top 5. It's nigh impossible to get right now. But if they're acquirable, I go about trying to find them for sure.
Gotcha.
Are you a trader or a buyer?
Both. Used to not be a trader. I used to really aggressively hold on to my games. I never wanted to sell anything, and the collection has gotten so huge.
Team
now.
Keeps getting
That's right.
2 and 3 review games, and then Bill buys them.
That's right. Our buddy Bill. I just give him all my crappy games.
I'm gonna tell you right now. When you just said your game collection is 1,000, I guarantee you, there's a few domers that just had heart attacks. Like people on the Discord that like are very proud of their 20+ game collection because they curate them very intentional. Like I want 20 games or I want 50 games, and this is what it's going to be. They make a lot of effort to curate and make it perfect. And then you're like, I have 1,000 games because I was like, oh my God, like that's crazy. You can open up in your own game store, dog.
All right, well, you guys want to move on? Next question?
We should just won't be here forever. Yeah.
Well, all right. So let's peek behind the curtain, do a little shop talk. Podcasters to podcasters. My question for you guys is there anything that has surprised you through your time so far just creating Dads on a Map? Is there anything that was harder than you thought? Anything that was easier than you thought? How's it been for you?
I mean, it's been an adventure. You guys are only, 12 episodes in?
Oh, yeah. We're the new kids on the block, man.
And we're like
6 months.
Between our different collections of shows, I think we're like 60 or 70 episodes in now. Almost 2 years. We're coming up on our 2-year anniversary. And we've learned so much along the way. From our archaic first recording methods where we would literally clap track in while we were on a Skype call. We'd be on a Skype call recording our own audio on each end. And we go, okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. And the clap would never line up when you go to edit it, right? Now, thankfully, one of the great things that happened during COVID was how advanced tele-networking, communicating, telephone, Zoom, whatever you want to call it, got. Sanchez and I have never met in real life. I live in Kansas City. He lives in Dallas. And we've recorded now 47 podcasts of our main show together without ever meeting each other because all this technology has come so far and allowed us to do this. But you learn so much. You learn about not only producing a show, recording a show, editing a show.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole nother can of worms that we've talked about here. As a 2-man show, Sanchez and I delegate our duties back and forth and deal with those things. But for a 3-man show, I'm kind of curious just to ask you guys, is there the editor? Or do you pass it around? Who's that guy? Because it kind of cracks me up from the outside. Everyone always talks about who's the one that we always talk about is horrible with technology
Definitely
and computers.
Chris,
That's
yeah.
Chris.
That's me.
It's Chris.
It's
Chris the Luddite.
So you've got to be out for the editing guy, right?
Actually, no.
Yeah, the ironic part is we started out basically very similarly, recording on GarageBand, and then because I have an audio-visual background, I went to college for filmmaking. I kind of took on the lead of initially doing all the editing and processing and all that stuff. But the ironic thing is that earlier on, it was kind of like, okay, well, Chris will do the editorial thing, right? He's been listening to these podcasts for a long time. He knows what they should sound like. And we'll just let Chris decide what gets cut and what stays in. And he'll listen to it. And we literally, like the first, I don't know what it was, 5 or 6 episodes, Chris would text us lists of time codes. And he would say, from here to here, cut that out. From here to here, it starts with this word. It ends with that word.
The worst possible way to edit.
Terrible.
Like
Chris would be like, I'm not good at computers. I'm not going to do it. And this entire time, of course, we make fun of him on and off the show about this. And it's a lot of fun. He used a computer last episode. I don't know if you guys stuck around for the credits, Hidden Gem listeners, but Chris used a computer last time. But now he is actually the main editor on the show. Jason and I take on some different roles working with the audio and mixing and making things sound good and stuff. But he actually is doing a lot of the editing at this point.
I'm proud of the fact that we've educated Chris enough that he is confident to do it on his own.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I am very technically challenged. If you all saw how I used Excel in my daily life, you would have nightmares about it. It's so bad. I'm not going to tell you how I use it because you would be appalled at the way that I use Excel. It took a little bit of training, a little bit of tutelage, but I was
a little
able to
bit
get
of
up to speed,
mockery.
and it's good. A little bit of mockery, that's right. But we're much better for it. We heavily edit, and the guys have helped me a lot in that for sure.
I used to be a heavy listener of Punching Cardboard, and they would always state that, hey, we don't edit. What you're listening to is real-time talk, and somehow me and James are like 100% on that boat. If there's just mess-ups, you're going to get exactly what it is.
All of Dads on a Map is usually what you get. And it's a stylistic decision, honestly. Mm-hmm. You can also call us lazy, which I wouldn't fight you on it.
All those episodes where we would get done recording, and we'd be like, cool. We have 2.5 hours of content here. We can't release that into the public, us droning on for like 45 minutes about one game, and then it became Chris's job to figure out how to make it, hour 20, hour 30.
Plus somebody has to cut out Cameron's dad jokes.
All my dad jokes.
Okay, last question I'm going to ask, and then we'll get into our review of Portobello Market. Chris, every one of your game reviews almost always starts with, I heard about this game on the Dice Tower. So how much do you love Tom Vassell, and do you own any fedoras or goofy hats?
I do not own any fedoras, but I own a lot of baseball caps. The listeners can't see, but y'all can see I have a cap on backwards almost always, as I do. And
do you bend the rim? I mean, you bend it, right?
I do bend the rim.
Yeah,
I bend the rim.
Thank goodness.
I'm not a flat rim kind of guy.
Sticker
on. That's a
do you need
non-starter for Dads on a Map. I think.
Yeah.
That's one of our core principles.
It's like podcast over. We're done.
That's right. We're too old to have flat build caps. But yeah, I love hats. I love the Dice Tower, I have to admit. When I first got heavy into the hobby, they were my go-to resource. I still listen to them to this day. I would say that there's probably not a day that goes by that I don't listen to Tom Vassell Vassal's voice, which sounds kind of weird, but it's just true. He's kind of become a trusted voice in the. It is. But he has become a trusted voice in the hobby for me. But I will say, he is not without his faults for sure, and I don't agree with him on all his thoughts about games. I think that the Dice Tower in general, it has just such a diversity of thought. It's expanded so much from when it was just him that they have a lot of different opinions, and there's a vault of information, really. If you go back 10 years and listen to Dice Tower, it's just loaded with hidden gem stuff, especially their top 10 lists. Top 100 lists. I mentioned this one on the podcast before, but if you want to see an awesome list of games and probably some games you've never heard of that you should check out Ryan Metzler's top 100 games of all time. He was their heavier game reviewer back in the day, but just a wealth of board game goodness. But in addition to the Dice Tower, also like Heavy Cardboard a lot. I like the Secret Cabal a lot, although I haven't brought them up on the show. I think they have some really good things to say about games. Rahdo on occasion as well, but Dice Tower mostly.
All right. Well, that's our live Q&A where we get to know each other a little more, dig deep on some topics. Are you guys ready to talk about Portobello Market? I'm excited for this part.
Me too.
Let's get into the game.
Let's do it.
All right.
London, 1901. Shopkeepers gather at the world-famous Portobello Market to set up their stalls in the most lucrative places. Build your shops in the most profitable districts to draw in the wealthiest customers and snatch the best lanes before your opponent. The bobby determines where stands can be built, but with a little effort, you can put the bobby where you want. Will you make your fortune in the Portobello Market?
I've been waiting for that.
Well done, as always.
The Bobby.
Cameron's been practicing for a long time on this one.
A couple days ago, he was sitting in my kitchen and he was listening to videos on YouTube on how to do the accent just right and appropriately.
Whole bunch of Doctor Who episodes. He's like, I got this.
Excellent. All right. So Portobello Market, also known as East India Railway. More on that later. Year of publication, 2007. This game's been published by Playroom Entertainment, Lotta Pellet, and Schmidt Spiele. At the time of this recording, its BGG ranking is 2,336. Designer of this game is Thomas Odenhoven. He has one other notable design, for us at least, and that would be Die Dolmengatter, that we will actually be reviewing pretty soon when we go through our abstract game episode. Are you guys familiar with Die Dolmengatter?
It's just recently started getting a little chatter in our Discord. Dylan, who's going to be on the show soon, actually owns a copy that I'll be playing in August at our convention.
Fantastic.
Yep.
All right, so one thing we like to do here on Hidden Gems, we like to talk a little bit about where we heard about this game or how we acquired it, if applicable. And true to form, I heard about this one from Tom. This is a Tom Vassal recommendation. So Tom does top 10 lists, and he did a top 10 Playroom Entertainment games. And this was on that list. It was actually ranked number 4. Come to find out, Playroom Entertainment actually has several really notable titles. So Reiner Knizia's Poison is a Playroom Entertainment game. Livingston, David and Goliath, the card game. I don't know if y'all are familiar with any of those, but Playroom has some pretty good games in their library, as it turns out. James Sanchez, how did you guys hear about Portobello Market?
So we heard about this from one of our Discord users, Rob, who we call Portobello Rob now because he introduced this game to us. No joke. Rob has been a contributor on the Heavy Cardboard streams during COVID. I know he did a play of Trans-Siberian Railroad that I remember in the last few months. So Rob jumps in the Discord one day, as we do, and he says, I just found this game, guys, and I think it might be a hit for Domers because I think this might be a secret train game, right? And we'll talk more about secret train games here in a second.
Yep.
And he just said it's called Portobello Market, pretty much a themeless-looking interactive Euro. And so I pulled it up and I'm like, what is this cover? You got the animated Bobby standing there. But then I looked on BGG and I was like, okay, I'll bring this in. So I bought a copy, jumped into the water and saw what happened. And I think, Sanchez, anything to add there? 'Cause it was pretty much a shared experience.
That's pretty much what it was. Secret chain game. It's simple. It's a filler game. And you can get it pretty cheap on the secondary market.
Nice. All right. Portobello Market rules. Gotta take a deep breath here. I'm feeling kind of anxious. You know, the rules teaching has been so built up. I feel like I'm going to blow it here, but I'm going to do my best. All right. So before I go over the details of the rules, I think it's important to understand how the game board is laid out. Otherwise, none of these rules are going to make any sense to you. So in Portobello Market, the game board consists of a network of interconnected roads or lanes, which are broken up into smaller rectangular segments where you place your market stalls. A lane can be anywhere from 2 to 6 segments in length, and each lane is flanked on each end by an open space called a square. So several different lanes will share a square, and this is where the lanes become interconnected. The dead space in between the lanes and the squares are called districts, and each district is surrounded by 3 different lanes and their accompanying squares. So this gives the districts a triangular type shape. All right, so now hopefully you have an idea of how the board is laid out. How does the game play? In each player's very tiny tableau, they have 3 action chits, number 2, 3, and 4. And these action chits designate how many actions a player can use on their turn. If on my turn I flip over the 4 action chit, I can do 4 actions on my turn. However, the trick is that I can't get that 4 action chit back until I have used both my 2 and 3 action chits. On your turn, you have 2 types of actions to choose from. You can either place a market stall or you can draw and place customers. If you choose the market stall action, you take one of your market stalls and you place it into an empty space in a lane. If the lane is empty, you will start your placement at either end of the lane. However, if a stall or stalls have already been placed in the lane, you must place your stall adjacent to the most recently placed stall, regardless of whether it's your color or another player's color. Another factor that you need to consider when placing stalls is the bobby. So there's one bobby on the board and he directs traffic in the districts. Players can only place market stalls into one of the 3 lanes that border the district that the bobby currently occupies. However, the players can move the bobby to other districts in order to place into more desirable lanes, but this might come at a cost. You can move the bobby as far as you want, whenever you want, and as many times as you want in your turn with no action cost, but every time the bobby jumps over an empty lane into a neighboring district, it will cost you a victory point. If the lane is occupied by market stalls, you will pay a victory point to whoever has the majority in that lane. However, if you have the majority in the lane, it is free for you to move across that lane with the bobby. Now, the second type of action that you take is placing customers. So I didn't mention this, but at the start of the game, a black bag is placed beside the board, which contains 5 gray meeples, the citizens or the commoners, and 5 pink meeples, the aristocrats. When you take this action, you reach into the bag and you will randomly pull out a meeple. You will then place this meeple on any of the 11 squares on the board, regardless of where the bobby is located. Once all 10 meeples are placed out on the board, a special black meeple, the Baron, will automatically be placed onto that final empty square on the board. So why are we placing out all these market stalls and citizens? Well, on each segment of a lane is printed a number ranging from 1 all the way up to 3. Once a lane is completely filled by market stalls and flanked on either side by citizens, a scoring will occur. In order to determine your points, you add up the values of all your market stalls. So, for example, if I had a stall on a 3 spot and a 1 spot, my base value would be 4. And I'll take that base value and multiply it by a multiplier bonus that I get for the type of customers that flank the lane. So, for example, if 2 gray commoners flank the lane, I get a 1x multiplier. Whereas if the lane is flanked by pink aristocrats, I get a 3x multiplier. Now, it's important to note that the players have one other action available to them on their turn. Instead of performing any of those 2 basic actions, a player can take either their 2 or 4 action chit if it's available. So if they haven't used it on a prior turn, and drop it into an empty district. If they do this, they will score a number of points equal to the value of that chit times the number of their market stalls that flank that district. So not their value, but just the number of stalls. They then take a neutral action token to replace the action they just spent. Once a player has played out all their market stalls, this will trigger the end of the game. Once all players have had an equal number of turns, the game will end. Any unfinished lanes will not score points. However, any unfinished lanes connected to the black meeple, remember that meeple I mentioned, the Baron, will still score at the end of the game. And the Baron gives a very generous multiplier as well. And that's generally how you play Portobello Market. How was that?
Very well done. Very good. I should just save that so I can show it to people when we play on Tabletop Simulator, so I don't have to do it.
For a game as simple as it is, and literally it's like 2 pages of rules, that was tricky because there is a lot of nuance and cleverness in this game that makes it very difficult to explain. So I hope that came across clearly. All right. So we always like to kick off our reviews with a question. So I'm going to kick this question over to James and Sanchez to get us started with some of the discussion here. So in some gaming circles, domers, for example, just mentioned this, there's this category of games that we refer to as hidden train games. Spectaculum would be an example of this that we talked about earlier. And basically, these are games that don't have a train theme, but play very much like a train game, like a Cube Rails game, for example. So as I mentioned earlier, Portobello Market was previously called East India Railway, a train theme, it seems. So again, I'll direct our question to James and Sanchez, since there are train game aficionados. Do you guys get a train game feel from this game? Do you think that a train theme works here?
This game is absolutely a train game. So I'm going to define a train game because I think that will be helpful. We have a saying in the Dads on a Map Discord that we toss around. I think it was one of our users, Adam, who made it up. So Sanchez, tell him what 6 means.
So
I'm going to put
we
Sanchez
now,
on the spot.
yeah. Oh my God, yeah. So now we have this term called 6, and what 6 is, it stands for Shared Incentive Common Space.
So that's SICS, Shared Incentives, Common Spaces.
Space.
I'll say this, a train game is almost always a 6 game with shared incentives and common spaces. Portobello Market has those things. It has shared incentives. It has common space, meaning we're all playing on the same board, affecting each other's places we can place. Shared incentives, of course, because as we fill in a market row and it scores, it'll score for multiple players at times.
So I'm going to push back just slightly here. Maybe you can elaborate and help me understand a little bit. And I understand what you're saying up to this point, but I'll just go ahead and say I didn't get the train theme strongly here. And the main sticking point for me was when you're laying out trains of a certain color, or any game for that matter, Ticket to Ride, whatever, route building, that train theme makes sense to me, right? I'm placing that certain color of train or that company, and that company continues along that route, okay? The one thing that trips me up with Portobello Market is if you look at the board, it looks like a train board. You see the lanes are all interconnected. They meet at squares or cities, right? But you can place different colored stalls in the lanes. It's not all one color, right? I have a hard time seeing the thematic connection there of how that works with a train game. That would almost be like taking one company or one color of train and putting it on a route and then putting a completely different color of train on the same route. That doesn't make sense to me.
So for me, if you're building those routes, right, you're building those stalls, and that stall is not going to make it, or I can hurt that company, that stall, then I'm going to move the bobby around and make it harder for that company to pay off. So every time someone places a stall, it's like, hey, that's a dividend payoff. That's going to be points at the end for that person. And you know what? Hey, I don't want that to happen. I'm going to ruin that route by moving the bobby over and making it harder to complete that route. Hence, all those actions, all those shares are now worthless because at the end of the game, if the route isn't completed, all those stalls are 0 because they don't score.
So I would say that this game features train game characteristics in the fact that you're building infrastructure, right? So let's say you look at a market row, right, that has its 5 spots from this point to this point. Nothing scores on that row until there's a patron at each end and all the stalls are full. If you want to like train theme it, I'm Pennsylvania Railroad, you are New York Central Railroad, and we really want to build a rail line. A rail line is going to be built from New York to Pittsburgh. And who's going to be the one who builds it? Are you going to build the whole thing and then you get all the money? Heck no. I'm going to get in on it with you. So you lay the first 2 stalls on your end. I'm like, I'm going to finish that out. I lay the next 3 stalls. Now we have built that infrastructure together. Once it has a patron at each end, it will score. And guess what? I'm going to score more points than you. You started the line. I have more stalls down. So we have collaboratively built that infrastructure, and I'm the one who's going to end up making the most points. It's minimal gain, right? Maybe I got 2 more points than you, but that's 2 more points than you. And if you get that enough times in this game, in train games, it's about incremental gains and delta values, right?
So I think with me, those little market stalls, they look like trains, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'm used to playing games like Age of Steam is one of my favorite games. I think we're thinking more of like a route building style pick up and deliver train game, whereas y'all are thinking about train games in a different way than we are.
It's certainly abstracted for sure, because no matter what you're building, if you're sharing it with somebody else and you can both get paid on it and you're doing it on the same space, that to me drifts into a train game, even if there's no trains involved. That is what encapsulates cube rails and train games. Now this game is literally a train game because, as the BGG entry mentions, it was called East India Railway.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend over in our Discord, Sean. He reached out to Thomas Odenhoven because he was interested in doing a redraw of this map. And he was curious about its history because it's literally a throwaway comment on BGG. This game, also known as East India Railways, you can't do that to train gamers, man. When you say that, we go looking for East India Railways, right? We want to find it and know what it was. So Sean got a response from Thomas Odenhoven, which I'm going to read here. He says, yes, my original game was called East India Railway, and it was about the construction and development of the railway network in India by the East India Railway Company in the 19th century. 2 years before I developed the game, I had been traveling India and became a big fan of the country. The game, as a prototype and still not published, won a famous competition for not yet published board games, and one German publishing company offered me a license contract, but only if I agreed to a new setting. They considered the railway setting as outdated and not popular anymore. Boo. We discussed a couple of alternative settings, and in the end, they came up with this London market setting, which I was fine with, although I regretted the farewell from my railway setting, which I still like much more. It was a business decision to reflect the taste of the mass market. The Bobby was the mogul. The patrons were settlements. Gray were villages, and pink were cities, and the black one was the capital. And the market stalls were, of course, rails. So that's the literal history from Thomas Odenhoven of what was East India Railways. He also shared a picture of the original prototype, which literally looks like a Cube Rails game.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think the train theme, hearing you all explain it, makes a lot more sense for sure. I appreciate y'all clearing that up, to be honest. I was telling the guys a little bit ago, I feel like y'all are playing three-dimensional chess and we're playing checkers here with the train themes, but we're learning for sure. Let's go into some pros here. What did you guys like about this game? Cameron, what did you like in Portobello Market?
Yeah, I think my favorite thing that I appreciated about this game is that I felt while playing it that I had a sense of control. There's very little randomness in Portobello Market. Even when drawing a dude out of the bag, which that would be the randomness that I could identify, you get to choose where you want it to go. You don't have to call it beforehand. You're not like, I'm going to play a dude here and now let's see who it is. You can place it wherever you want, which means if it's a pink one and you want to place it on something that you're invested in, boom, you can do it. If you pull it out and it's a gray and I don't want to 1x my score that I've been working on here, you can place it on someone else's. That's a lot of control, even with randomness in your hands.
Not to mention, you can play with those percentages, right? If 3 or 4 grays have come out and not many pinks, you have great odds, right? Again, there's randomness, there's luck there, but you can definitely play the odds to your favor, which I really enjoyed that part of it as well.
You can have control for when am I going to take that action, right?
Yeah, cool. That control even carries over to, I'll play my 3, right? I'm going to pull a patron out first. Did I get the one I wanted? Okay, great. Now I'll lay down some market stalls. Did I not get the one I wanted? Let me pull another one, right? I really like that bit of control and decision-making that's in the game.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the shared incentive piece that we've already talked about. It took me a little while to figure out how to drive that in this game, but when I started to get the hang of it, controlling the placements, because the numbers are different in each route, the ordering of the numbers, and figuring out, okay, well, I need to time it so that I can get the best numbers within this route and not set somebody else up in order to grab those last couple spots or the middle spots that have the highest values. I really enjoyed that element to the game.
Yeah, and I really like the limited action selection of 2, 3, or 4, which can change then based on the neutral tokens. But it's a little bit excruciating at times because, man, I want to use my 4 and dump a bunch of stuff out. But I'm really going to want that 4 later, not only for the chance to multiply it, which is a thing all on its own, but just because maybe my 4 will be more useful then. So making those decisions and dealing with the pacing of you want to get them all back, right? You're going to get them all back at the same time, but which one do you want to have for those next 2 turns until it's time to refresh?
Yep. Every action is important. You mess up one action that can set you behind. You're down on points because you misread the board. You didn't see the board state. You didn't place these stalls here or there, or you didn't pull something and decentivize something else. Everything is important in this game because it's a short game, but everything matters. And that's an amazing game to me. I love games where one misstep could ruin it. So you got to play everything perfect. And this game does that.
Yeah, Sanchez, I think you made a really great point there. I think this game has a really interesting timing and tempo element to it. So I would be interested to know y'all's thoughts on this too. This is just an observation that I made in my plays, and maybe it's incorrect, but while pulling meeples out of the bag can be really powerful in the right moment, and I think it's a great move at the right time, I did find in my plays that if I found myself pulling out of the bag too much, I wasn't getting as much of a presence on the table, right? Because when I put a pink down, that's great. I place a pink on the board, but now everybody else is incentivized to place on the lanes adjacent to that pink, right? So that's helping them in a way too. So if I'm the one that's just constantly pulling the meeples out of the bag, but not putting stalls down, I'm getting behind on the board, right? So I think it creates a great decision. Is it worth it to pull out of this bag again, or do I just need to get more presence on the board? It's a great decision point.
Yeah, me and James played this 2 players, 3 players. Unfortunately, we did not play 4 players, but with the 2-player game, we realized placing stalls, you're dictating the pace of the game. I play the strategy. I'm going to pull citizens. I'm going to try to minimize and try to mitigate what James is trying to do with his points. But pulling stalls is the ultimate control of this game because you control the end of the game by writing out all your stalls. I did that, but James is just placing stalls and I'm trying to 1-time you or 2-time you. And he just whatever, I'm placing stalls. I'm going to get points and you're not going to get jack because you're wasting your turns.
Yep.
So
exactly
that's
what Sanchez
I love
said.
that part.
Putting out stalls means you are controlling the end game pacing, and the end game is the most important part of this game.
Mm-hmm.
I say pulling customers is for suckers, is what I say, because I love to get myself in a position where I am leeching off other people that have started infrastructure, and then I know that Sanchez wants to pull pink customers because he already put some markets down on that row. So I'm going to let him pull the customers while I pepper this board with markets as much as I can. And Sanchez had mentioned that we recently played 2 and 3. I've played it at 4 as well. And it is an insanely fast game at 4. You have 16 stalls. 3 players 20 and 4 player is 16 and 2 players 30. Mm-hmm. So 16 stalls. I mean, if you play your 4, 3, and your 2, that's 9. So you can do 2 rotations of your markers and end the game at 4 player. It was so lightning fast, maybe too fast at 4 player. It was insane at 4 player.
Bill tried to do that in one of our 4-player games, and he was down to 1 market stall left after the 3rd round, and everybody was just everybody was scrambling and panicking.
Right.
But at the same time,
he has the most points, that's it. He goes, go for it.
Well, that was the interesting thing is he had no points at that point, which is, first play, that type of thing. But it's fascinating to think if you rush that end game and you plan it right and you have managed to gain some points, as long as you have more than everybody else, you could really be at an advantage doing that.
Mm-hmm. So I have to ask James, so you mentioned pulling out of the bag as a sucker's play. And I kind of tend to agree with you because like I said, in the games I did poorly in this game, I always looked back and I was like, I pulled too many people out of the bag. I always identified that as a problem in my play. So do you think that's a weakness of the game? If this one action is clearly just so much better than pulling from the bag, is that a problem, right? Because usually if one action is just way more desirable than another, that's a con, right? What do you think about that?
No, it's brilliant. It's brilliant is what it is because nobody ever scores points if nobody pulls customers. That's right. So it creates this immediate tension that someone's got to do it, right? Yeah. So both either someone's going to do it. Yeah, someone's going to do it and be wrong that they should have let someone else do it. But there's this brilliant pass the buck moment, right? Like I said, Sanchez already started the infrastructure. I know he wants to get a pink out. I'm not going to do it. Are you going to do it? And maybe you get into one of those head-to-head deadlocks where nobody's going to do it. Well, guess what? Those players are going to lose because if they're not willing to ever do it, they'll be Bill and they'll never get off the start point of the game, right? So I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, that happened actually one of the Q Bro games that me and James played, where we had who has the biggest D, and it was just I'm not doing it, and just I'm not doing it, and you know what? Someone else won because
we sunk ourselves.
Yeah, we sunk ourselves because I didn't want to give that power to James, but James is like, dude, you do it, and I'm like, I don't want to do it, and that happens in this game because if you build rows and you have the most points in that row, you gotta pull customers to score, and then James is trying to figure out, well, you're gonna do that, I'm gonna already build over here to maximize my turns and my stalls.
There's a definite break point in here too. I say it's for suckers, but if you have filled an entire row with your markets, it's time to slam that door shut and start pulling. Yes. You're going to pull them either to pull pinks and put them where you need them or pull grays and throw them as far away as you can. right? You know what I mean? Throw them up there in the corner where no one has developed because you want to make sure pink or black lands in those last spots that you have a full row.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because that was a point I wanted to bring up too, and it's pertinent to what we're talking about. So I'm not saying this is a con. This was just a perceived issue maybe that I saw. I would love to hear your thoughts on it again because y'all seem to be thinking a couple steps ahead of us. But when you have that thing happen where somebody fills in an entire lane, let's say it's a 5-segment long lane and they've got their entire color in there, but it's not flanked on either side by citizens. Then you kind of run into this tough spot where everybody's looking at all the other people like, well, who's going to suck it up and take one for the team and ensure that Jason doesn't just destroy us on this lane. And I don't want to do it because it's
right. Then it becomes Gypsy King. It becomes turn order the game. It becomes pass the buck, which is so prevalent. That's like a feature of Cube Rails game. Passing the buck to the next person in turn order. You have to defend him. If you don't defend him, he wins and we all lose, right? And that's what that is. Same thing you said. It becomes that moment. Now we got to pull just to put grays there. And then if it doesn't happen, now I'll pull my pinks and lock it up, right? And so there's that ebb and flow during the game. Somehow, all of this during a 20-minute game.
So does it become the person to the right of that person that's going to benefit's responsibility to do that? And then, I
mean, that's the last gasp, right?
Right. And so what if they don't do it? Do you just get mad at them, or
they probably look at the people to their right and they say,
"You should have done
sorry."
it." Yeah. Like you should have done it. Why didn't you do that?
Bill!
That's right.
The brilliant thing is it's a 20, like I said, it is a 20-minute game. So any hurt feelings or whatever that happens, rack it up again, right? Let's go again because
Chris, I think what you just explained is the quintessential train game conundrum. That is the highest peak of what a train game is. Like, oh my God, who's going to do this action to save the game or not key make or whatever? Because you're like, I'm not going to do that. It's not in my best interest, but I'm going to hand it over to somebody else. Or I'm not going to do that. I got to do this. And all of a sudden, no one did it because it's a shared incentive common space.
So there's another thing that I wanted to bring up with Portobello Market, and that was I really thought that the mechanism of the Bobby was particularly well done in this game in the sense that it's not an action. I think it's kind of genius that they made it not an action. You can do it as many times as you want, and yet it's counterbalanced by the fact that there's a cost associated with it. My opinion of that was that I think it was really well done. I consider it a pro of this game. What do you guys think of that?
I waver on the Bobby. I have my issues. He goes between pro and con for me because I'm not sure the points that you have to pay to move him across to other people's rows are dramatic enough to impact the game state. That's the devil on my shoulder, right? And then the angel on my shoulder is like, yeah, fill up that square. I don't know if you guys had this move. You start the game off with a 3, and then you put a stall on every side of you. So if someone wants to move out, they're going to pay you or they got to build first, right? Mm-hmm. And I do love that. So I waver. I still don't know the answer to how I feel about the Bobby. I want to play a game without it, without the payment, and see what happens. I think it would become total loosey-goosey and ruin it because I'd just run him up in the corner and lay stuff, and then you'd run him back down where you want to. It would break the tension. And so I think he provides the necessary tension to make the game operate. That's what I think.
So the most I think that we saw in terms of a swing on points of someone just being willing to bite the bullet and do what they needed to happen by moving the Bobby as much as they wanted, even over spaces that they could not move over for free, was like 2, maybe 3.
Right.
And so I think it's doing its job, right? Because it's restricting you from running across the map and doing exactly what you want for free. That's kind of genius as a game mechanism to me. I even appreciated the fact that you can end your turn intentionally, like, okay, I'm going to move here, and then I'll just intentionally move over the line just so that the person to my left is going to have to pay me a point if they want to do something on their turn.
We saw some clever trickery around that in some of our plays. One other element that I wanted to bring up that I thought was fascinating about this game, and I'd be interested to hear you guys' thoughts, is the placement of the 2 and the 4 chits out on the board. It seems like such an excruciating decision because you're foregoing an entire turn to place this out, but it can be really valuable, especially that 4. The 2 is a little more questionable. It kind of depends. It seems circumstantial. I was curious you guys' thoughts on the use of both the 2 and the 4 in your plays.
Sanchez, you should go first because you made quite a dramatic move with one of yours last game that we played, our 2-player game.
I did. So, like, I try to use the 2 and the 4 placement as defensive because James is building this massive thing. And I'm just like, okay, if I play my 2 here, I'm going to get my 3. I'm going to get a gain of an action step and then try to hold my 4 on. I did that. I got an extra step, but James is still placing stalls everywhere, right? And so I used the 4 to try to hinder his ability to like claim a massive spot. But at the same time, I lost an action step now. But then he just went over somewhere else and started building again and then was able to use his 4. And the whole time, I gained 0 points for my 2 and 4. Even though I was gaining actions more than he was, didn't matter because he was scoring points solely on stall placements where I was playing defensively. So we were talking about it where like, was that a smart play? Because James is like, oh my God, you did that? I'm like, yeah, I did that because I can't have you score 44 points and me not respond to it. But at the same time, he was laying stalls where I was, trying to not have him do that, but he did it anyways. So I lost a lot of points by doing those actions and getting nothing for it because it didn't matter at the end. James, what do you think?
I love the considerations that the 2 and 4 times multipliers add to your turn. And And I love where I'm going to keep peppering stalls in this one area, right? I'm up to 7 or 8. Now it falls on the people to my left. Do they just toss their 2 in there to close it so I can't do it? And if it's early in the game, they could get a 3 back for it. That's not a bad exchange, is it? But it's a loss of an action. So those are the decision points, right? And in that game where he literally played his 4 times for 0 points, I won that game by 8 points. You know what I mean? He sacrificed all those points to stop me from getting a big swell of points, and it ended up being a very tight game. It was not a, not a butt whooping or anything like that.
Speaking of timing, it did occur to me, it does seem like initial turn order can be really important in this game. I won one of the games we played, and I think for that game, I was in the 4th spot. And so that's a really powerful position to be in because you know that no matter who ends the game, you've got another turn, unless, of course, you're the one ending the game in which you're in full control, right? As opposed to one of the first few games I played, I was in the 1st spot, and I totally miscalculated. I wasn't even thinking correctly about how the end game was going to happen, and so I thought I had a whole nother turn. That's beside the point. But what are your guys' thoughts on that turn order, and do you think it matters in terms of end game results?
This was my biggest con, and maybe James and Sanchez will change my mind, but I agree with you totally because I had a game where I was in first position, and I didn't feel like the quote-unquote advantages that I got for going first outweighed the benefits that you get from what you just explained of being able to sit back and know that nobody can end it before me without me getting at least one more turn. In the games where I went first, I placed my stalls out in what I thought was a clever placement, trying to get everybody to pay me by moving the Bobby, and then everybody just moved way far away from there, and I had 2 stalls that just never even finished. And so, I don't know, it just seems like being in first position in this game is a bad spot to be in, whereas being near the end or last is much better to me.
I don't think that in my plays I've paid quite enough attention to make a real strong comment about this, but my instinct is what you do get from first position is you're likely to have your markers refresh first. And what that means is you have the first opportunity to deploy your 4X before anyone else can get involved. So I think from first seat, that might have to be a focus of yours.
But see, what I would say to that is I do feel like this game is a lot of responding to what people are doing. Like you mentioned earlier, the placing of the citizens or the customers. A person places an aristocrat out and you respond to that, right? I always feel like it's better to be reacting to what everybody is doing instead of taking the lead, right? If I'm always in the lead, people are reacting to what I'm doing. Oh, Chris is going to put a pink customer there. I'm going to build off of it. Chris is going to go here. I'm going to move this over here. I don't know. It just seems like to me, being after somebody is a little bit better of a spot.
I do think, Chris, you're going to have me paying attention to it in the future because I do think you're right. This is a reactive game. And as first player, you don't get to be as reactive as the other players. So it's something I'm going to be looking at in my future plays. I want to see what I think of it when I'm looking for it too.
Well, we ready to move on to final thoughts?
Yeah, let's do it. Why don't we have the Dads on a Map guys go first, since I guess we're following the Hidden Gems format. Sanchez, why don't you kick us off?
Do you want to recap our rating scale for the listeners of Dads on a Map?
I meant to do that, and thank you for reminding me. Yeah. So for you domers that don't know how we grade things here on Hidden Gems, just do a quick review of that. So we grade on a 1 to 6 scale. If we give a game a 1, we don't like the game, and we don't like the game because we feel like there's a problem with the game. Mechanically, something is off. The game is broken, quote unquote. A 2 is a bad game. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the game mechanically. We just don't like the game for whatever reason. We don't enjoy it. A 3 for us is what we would call a meh game. It's just okay. It's not bad, but it doesn't excite us. For me, I wouldn't keep this game. It's just a game on a pile of games. A 4 is a good game. We enjoy this game. We see its value. We would play it again. 5 is an excellent game, above average. We really enjoy this game a lot. We would love to play it again if it hit the table. And then 6 are our favorite games. These are the best of the best for us, the games we enjoy the most. For a lot of people, this would be like your top 10 or 15. For me, it's probably my top 50, but I just do it how I want. I give out a lot of 6s, okay? It's in our favorite games, all right? So, with that being said, Sanchez, what do you think?
Looking at the game, looking at the play, look at the good times I've had with it, I feel really comfortable with a 5. I love this game. I think it's great. When you really sit down with it and you really explore the game, you really explore the actions, you explore the tempo on it, it becomes a way better game than a lot of people do, because you buy this game for $5 on BGG, which means that people really didn't give it a chance. They really did not sit there, or they didn't like the fact that you're pulling out things or whatever, but it doesn't matter. I like that kind of confrontation. I like that kind of interaction. I like people taking things away from me and I'm trying to build things or take advantage of other people's missteps. So I think this is a great game. I'm good with a 5 on this game. James, what do you think?
I fluctuated. I could see this probably happens to you guys when you record these, because I was like, I'm going to be here. And then it was like, ooh, tick it up. And then it was like, ooh, tick it down. It's like this meter that's going to settle in. And I'm going to settle in at a 4. I love Portobello Market. It's good. It's going to stay in my collection forever, and I pull it off the shelf anytime. But it does not quite grab me, right? It doesn't quite get its claws into me the way I would want to say the word 5. And so I'm going to go with a 4. I think it's a terrific game. It's what I would call a killer filler. It can come out anytime for a 20-minute. This is the perfect, our third person hasn't shown up yet. Let me show you Portobello Market. My kids can play it and enjoy it and play it strategically. So it's a great game to have in my collection. But for me, I'm going to call it a 4. There's a lot of games out there, and I'm always very careful that I don't want to push too high too early.
I'm going to jump in here and go next. I'm a little sad that you went before me, but I'm kind of not, because, shared incentives. You basically did all the hard work for me. And I pretty much agree with 100% of what you just said. As we were talking, my rating was fluctuating a little bit back and forth. I was really struggling between a 4 and a 5 with this game. I settled on a 4 for a lot of the same reasons you mentioned. It's short, it's vicious. There's a lot of good decisions to be made, but there was just something that didn't completely grab me about it. I don't know that I can 100% quantify that, but it's a great game. I would happily play it again, but I settled on a 4.
Well, this is kind of funny. I enjoyed playing Portobello Market. I actually won a game of this, which is not as frequent as I might like at our game table. It's got a good pace and a good runtime for my style. Turns are simple, and yet you can really do a lot on your turn if you need to, right? I love that Bobby mechanism. String it out if you need to, right? I liked feeling like I had some control and some influence in the game. I can't really point to a game mechanic in this game that's not well balanced, and I feel like it's quite well designed. However, just like James and Jason pointed out, I just feel like it lacked something that I can't really put my finger on that really made me love it and feel excited about playing this game. So I'm also going to go with a 4. I like it. I think it's good. I'd play it again. I just feel like it's missing, like, you hate to say the word pizzazz, right? But it's like that thing that just gets you excited about it. So
it's a themeless, soulless experience, but so is Spectaculum, and I'd rather play that. So I don't know, right? That's about all I can say.
Interesting. So you prefer Spectaculum to this one?
I would say so, yeah.
Interesting. Another great game.
All right. Waiting in suspense.
So for me,
six.
I know, right? 6. Let's move on. For me, games like this, these are just in my wheelhouse right now. Short, simple, elegant. Like I said, literally the rule book is 2 pages, but great depth of decision making. Thematically, it's not super exciting looking, but I don't really care for that. What does it make me feel like when I play it? Do I place a stall? Do I pull from the bag? do I drop my 2x multiplier or my 4x multiplier on the board, or do I hold on to it to keep this extra action that I might need later? And oh no, Jason's got 2 stalls left. What am I going to do on my turn? I love stuff like that. And again, in a very simple rule set. I enjoyed this game very much. The one thing that held it back for me was the turn order thing that I see as a perceived issue. But outside of that, I had a hard time coming up with cons for this game. And when I have a hard time coming up with cons for a game, that's usually a pretty strong indicator that it's going to be up there for me. So I'm giving this one a 5. I'm with Sanchez on this one. This is a strong 5 for me. I love this game. I thought it was great. I mean, I played it.
Baby.
In anticipation of this episode, I probably played it 7 or 8 times, and I just want to play it more. Like I said, it's a quick play. Yep. I really enjoyed this one a lot. Solid 5 for me.
Nice.
Sweet.
Well,
those
that's
are our
Portobello
thoughts.
Market, right? That's
no.
Market.
See, you all made the same mistake again. We have to talk about where we get it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
We do this on our episodes all the time.
This is a common hidden gems error.
It's hard because you already have it, and that's exactly what my brain is thinking. I already got this game. Whatever. On to the next thing.
So for those listeners of ours out there who have heard our reviews about Portobello Market and are curious about trying it out themselves, where can we find Portobello Market, Chris?
Thanks, Cameron. So Portobello Market is in stock at Noble Knight for $20. We plug Noble Knight a lot. They don't sponsor us, but they are a very excellent source for harder to find games on the internet. So I would definitely check out Noble Knight if you're interested in this game. There's also many copies on BGG as well, 31 to be exact, and very reasonable prices there as well. So if it sounds interesting to you, pretty easy to acquire this one.
Buy it.
Get it. Try it.
All right, we're going to be back in just a moment with some nonsense as we battle it out in Podcast Clash.
Cannot wait for this.
Okay, welcome back. It's time for a little bit of nonsense. When we agreed to make this show a reality, I knew I wanted to make this as special as possible. So I reached out to a special friend of the show. He's a domer in our Discord, valuable member of our community. I know I've seen him over in the Hidden Gems Guild as well. He's a former co-host of Cardboard Reality, podcast that was essentially our alma mater, and he is a current writer for Board Game Quest. I'm pleased to welcome to this super show, Dylan St. Clair.
Hey, aka Drew Carey for this episode.
Welcome back to the airwaves. So back in the Cardboard Reality days, Dylan was the trivia master. These guys had recurring game show bits where Dylan would either trounce everybody else or he was operating the game. He'd pretty much embarrass everyone with the questions. So, of course, I couldn't think of a better person to invite to a Dads on a Map Hidden Gem Throwdown than Dylan. So, Dylan, what do you got in store for us today?
So before we get to the questions, I gotta plug my review that came out today. You mentioned I'm a writer. I had a Beyond the Sun review come out today. Gotta plug it. Always plugging your stuff. I also wanted to mention I told my father-in-law, who is also my landlord, that we rent from my father-in-law, and he was going to come over and work on my stove. And I said, Gary, you can't come over today. I'm getting ready to record a podcast. And he goes, why don't I come on as a mystery guest? And I'm like, Gary, it's about board games. The only board games you like are Dutch Blitz and Quirkle. And he said, well, I could just go on and say, I don't know how to plug in these board games. Like, that's verbatim what he said. I don't know how to plug in these board games. That's how my evening has went. So, yeah. So a quick overview of the game. We've got some imbalance of co-hosts with Dads on a Map having 2, Hidden Gems having 3. So since there's an imbalance, there will be rules to accommodate each section. For the same reason, Dads on a Map will be given a slight advantage by having the first turn in the first section, and they'll always be given an extra question per section. So each podcast will be given 3 questions.
Can we just give Dads on a Map Cameron and call it even?
You can count me and Cameron as like half a person.
Is
in this.
Cameron
Chris is the heavy hitter.
See, Chris, you said first player disadvantage in Portobello Market. So here we go. Kick it back around and give us a little advantage in the
coming
podcast.
Full circle
clash.
now.
Yep.
I'm ready.
Cameron wasn't even here to defend himself.
Nope. I just threw you under the bus, man. Big time.
Whatever. I don't even know what you guys said.
I love it.
Let's keep it that way.
So before I go over the sections, I do need a turn order from Hidden Gems. who you want to go first in each section, second, and third.
Chris, Jason, Cameron, just like the show, right?
Sounds good.
And
Let's do it.
also the order of likely right answers.
There we go.
Like the
I like
anchor?
that.
You guys are going to have the anchor? What's up with that? Okay, we got this. We got this, James.
So we've
Oh,
got
yeah.
those. Reminder, when answering, you may not give or receive help from your co-hosts. You may not also use any technology to research. And opposing teams may not interfere. So whenever it's not your turn, keep your mouth shut.
Can we steal answers if they don't know?
There is no stealing answers. I'm harsh like that.
Can we answer to show off, even if it's not for points, if we know it?
You may, yes.
All right, don't get too excited, Chris.
I'm going to
Chris
totally
is the only
fail
one going
at
to be
this.
doing that.
So the first one is actually not one where everyone has their own question. We are going in a loop where you get so many answers. You're trying to answer so many questions in this category. And I'll
Okay.
explain a little bit more in a second. Who does Dads on a Map want to go first? Be the first answeree.
Sanchez, you go first.
Oldest
Right.
or age before beauty, right? It's good.
All right. So the first category is 1999, according to BGG.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Oh, boy.
Reiner Knizia, riding high near the peak of his career, had a whopping 9 games released in 1999 that chart on BGG. Starting with Sanchez, he must give one game that Reiner Knizia released in 1999. We go until 6 wrong answers are given.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Chris just
This
put
is
his
the-
hands.
the
He
Thunderdome.
just did the defeat Cobra.
Oh, my
Just
gosh.
okay.
Reiner Knizia has like 300 some games in BGG, right?
600 plus.
It is 6. Yeah, 600.
Okay.
So I can't even get that right.
1999, Sanchez.
Oh my god.
Are you looking at your
okay.
shelf, young man?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Let's go with Mononart.
Incorrect. That was 1992.
Damn. Okay.
And I didn't just know that off the top of my head. Chris.
That actually helped me a lot because I was thinking about the auction trilogy. Oh, my gosh. Tigers and Euphrates.
Incorrect. 1996.
Oh, my God.
James.
I'm gonna go with Medici.
Incorrect.
Come on,
1995.
we're embarrassing ourselves. We're
There's
embarrassing
600
ourselves here.
Dude, there's 600 games. Really? Come on.
We now have Jason.
Oh, boy. Well, let's just round it out. Ra?
Correct.
Go, let's go, Jason.
Yes.
Nice.
I'm cheering for the other team just because I'm happy somebody got one right.
Back to Sanchez.
Oh man.
So Cameron like loops in after this. Okay, I
Yes.
got it.
Mhm.
Yep.
Let's go with Through the Desert.
Incorrect.
Good answer. Good answer. I'm giving
I
it the
think that
family
was
feud. Good answer, Sanchez.
1997.
So that's on to Cameron.
Yes, it is. Cameron.
All right. I'm going to go based on the art and also the only 3 Knizia games that I know. Curios.
Incorrect. All right. And now, James.
Gosh, I have all these games on my shelf. I'm not at my shelf, by the way, and I would totally cheat and look at it if I could. I'm going to go pick Omino or Heckmeck Bratwurken.
Final wrong answer. We
God.
got to those much quicker than I expected.
So we lost 1-0 in category
that's
number
tough.
1.
Almond Ray,
Uh,
maybe?
Yeah, that was
Lost
going to be my
Cities.
next guess.
Lost Cities.
Lost
Cities.
Cities.
Ah.
Shot and Totten.
Okay.
Stevenson's Rocket.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Hidden
Huge
Gems
sense.
Review Money.
Oh.
No.
Oh yes.
And then here comes the weird ones. Rhinelander, Relationship Type-Rope, Hong Kong, and Diablo Low.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
I even mentioned money on the show earlier. And then there it is.
All right.
Okay, well done, Jason.
Yeah, Jason, good job, man.
And
Yeah.
that also
Just goes to
helps
show how much-
Good guess.
because whoever had the last correct answer will be going first. So,
gosh.
Hidden Gems actually will be going first based on that. So, sticking to 1999, each contestant will now be given their own question to answer with 0 help from co-hosts. For the dads, one co-host must be chosen to receive a second question. So, you guys can
James.
choose. Is it
James, you
James'
wanna go
turn?
Are these
go-
multiple
this
choice?
is- This is me crossing my fingers.
Heck no, they're not multiple choice.
I'm going train games.
Okay, we're influencers, man. We don't need we don't need multiple choice.
Okay,
We're
yeah.
influencers.
James will take the second question on
All right,
this one.
let's go.
Sounds good. So this goes to Chris to start out. This 8-hour war game from Ted Racier is currently the highest ranked game from 1999 on BGG.
This would have been a
boy.
great video podcast because all of our faces are just the same look of disbelief. Dylan, you weren't supposed to make it as hard as possible.
Oh man, is this that one? Is that World
He thinks
War
because we're
I?
all a bunch of old dads. Like he could say 1999, and we're like, yeah, let's go. I could do music from 1999.
I'm gonna go with Paths of Glory.
Bingo!
Oh my god!
Wow.
Look at this guy.
Woo!
So next is James.
Oh, come on, James. Do this.
This
Do it.
popular trading card game released in 1999 sees two duelists begin a match with 8,000 life points. Original cards from the first set include Celtic Guardian, Pot of Greed, and Gaia the Dragon Champion.
Oh yes, of course, Gaia the Dragon Champion, my favorite as my main in this game.
Don't you have some underuse with that?
Yes, played all the time. I have no idea. I'm going to say Star Realms.
Incorrect. This is Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh my god.
Whoa!
Oh,
Forget how old Yu-Gi-Oh is.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I grew up playing Yu-Gi-Oh, so this would have been a no-brainer for me outside of the board gaming realm.
How long is a game if you start out with 8,000 life points?
Well, I mean, in the first set, you had a
Oh my
card
god.
that had 3,000 attack points. So
Yeah, the blue
Oh,
eyes
okay.
white
Blue
dragon
Eyes White
comes out.
Dragon.
Yeah,
There
he
we
comes
go.
out. And then the Dark Magician comes out, and then you just win. That's what fun for kids showed me.
Well, at least we're not talking about magic again, so I'll be okay with this.
All right. Next one is for Jason. Current score is Hidden Gems 2, Dads on a Map, Zilch. Jason, while its inspiration was the winner of the 1995 Spiel des Jahres, this 1999 sci-fi sequel used plastic pieces to show upgrades, which had a reputation for breaking.
oh my goodness. We just did an episode on Spiel des Jahres. I feel like I should know this.
That's a really good point.
We
Yeah,
went through a list of like 40 of them.
right. It should have at least been mentioned. I don't know.
Oh.
I'm just goading him here.
Space-themed games. I have no idea. Chris is shaking his head like I should know this.
I know this. Yep.
So, Jason, you got a guess, or are you just going to pass it?
Just guess, dog. Just guess.
Pulsar 2048.
From 1999. That is incorrect. Chris, what you got?
Starfarers of Catan.
That would be correct.
This guy. Uh-oh. We got a ringer. Sanchez, there's a
Was
ringer
it the
here.
fun fact
know.
about the game pieces breaking, Chris?
The rocket pieces broke, if I remember correctly.
They broke all the time. They had a really bad reputation for it. And then it got a reprint 2 years ago, and they fixed all those.
Northwind.
Well, that one is based off of the 2-player version. Starfarers or Catan is the 4-player one that got a reprint from Z-Man. Yeah. Yep.
Bill and I geeking out.
Dylan is a walking BGG. He's
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
BGG.
All right, let's go.
This goes to Sanchez.
Let's do this.
Richard Borg is up to 14 entries in his classic wargaming line as of this recording. What was the first game that was indeed released in 1999?
Richard Board game. That's a board game. 1999.
Sanchez,
Holy-
do you know Richard Borg? I'm not helping. I just want to tease him.
No,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to.
Ooh, someone's gonna be mad at you for not knowing that. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm trying to think of all the board. Oh man.
Well, Sanchez thinks about this. I'm going to tell a quick story. I remember we had Dylan on the show, and we had a Cardboard Reality reunion with him and his co-host Nick. And Nick prepared a game, and it was supposed to be me versus Sanchez versus Dylan. And we actually turned it into a 2-on-1 because Dylan was kicking our butt so bad, and he still just destroyed us. And now I'm remembering that while I sit here with my 0 points.
Do you remember the Final Jeopardy section where I took out my headphones and let you guys collaborate on the
That's correct,
final
yeah.
episode, and I still
You're
beat you.
Dude, we were so buzzed at that point.
Oh gosh, that was crazy.
so much alcohol was drinking on that episode.
you got to
Sanchez,
guess,
what do you got?
Sanchez?
I'm gonna guess. It's gonna be Hamilton and Hamilcar. No.
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 So the line is the Commands and Colors line.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it, that was the second guess.
John
And
Rogers
the
gonna
first
yell at
guess,
you.
the first game in the line was Battle Cry.
I
Civil
would not
War.
have gotten
The
that.
U.S. Civil War. Yep.
No, Chris is like, yeah, I
Um,
would have got that. Sit down, Chris.
Cameron, you are up, and you get a train game question.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
come on.
Oh, that's just perfect for me. I've played so many train games. You guys get ready.
He's like, Portobello Market?
As an intro to the genre with historical objectives, a smaller map, and 6 companies, this is the highest ranked 18xx game of the 2 released in 1999.
Oh, 1829, of course.
That is incorrect.
I've never played
like-
an 18xx game proper. I've only played Age of Steam. That's my first pick up and deliver game that I've ever played.
That's one of my
Pick a
wife's
number.
favorite games, so it actually has no numbers in it other than 18. It is one that Sanchez owns, 18AL.
18CZ.
18 AL.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
there's a lot of those.
That is
Chris
the
has a
highest
whole
ranked-
shelf dedicated to his 18 games, and I'm always like, "What's that? What's the deal with that one?" And I never remember because I've never played one. He's like, "We
So
need to get you on one of
18AL
those."
18AL is the highest ranked 18xx game.
From
In
1999.
Oh, from 99.
Holy
Okay,
crap.
Yeah. All right,
Man.
And the final question goes to James.
I feel like we gotta have this, Sanchez.
You got to get a point on the board going into the next category.
I'm ready.
This fruit-based party game may not have the most ratings for a 1999 game on BGG, but according to the designer, it has sold over 15 million copies.
Bananagrams.
I like the guess, but it's actually apples to apples.
Oh, I
come
thought it was
on.
bananagrams.
Dang it. I felt so
I know,
good about
right?
that
That
one.
was a great guess.
That
That
is
was
a
an
great
awesome-
guess.
Oh.
All right.
Apples
So,
to apples.
I hope you guys know your designers because now we're into the category Forgotten Games or Dreadful Designs. For this
That
category,
seems like a good
each-
one for the hidden gems guys.
For this category, each contestant will be given their own question to answer. I'll be listing off 4 lesser-known games from fairly known designers. It is your job to give me the designer of those games. For most of these questions, only 3 of those games will be helpful to your answer. The last is an obscure and in many cases hilariously titled game that they designed that I'm featuring because I think they're funny. The dad who received 1 question in the previous segment will be receiving 2 this segment. So Sanchez
go,
is getting a
Sanchez.
second.
Holy
I
crap.
believe
Lucky
in
you.
I believe in you.
All right.
We'll
let's go.
stick to the same order we had. So we're gonna start with Chris. The 4 games we have are Mamma Mia, Babel, Hengist, and we're seeing Schwanger, which translates to "We are pregnant."
That would be Uwe Rosenberg.
Dang it.
Ding,
I
ding,
knew that
ding.
one. I knew Hengist. That's the
I
only one I
actually
knew.
did know that.
Yeah, because it's historically bad.
Right. That's the only one I
The
knew.
worst 2-player games of all
Oh,
time.
man.
Yeah, to James. Or no, it's to Sanchez. Yes.
No, it's me. Yeah.
Okay, so we have the Adventure Game series from Cosmos, Archaeology, the card game, Gingerbread House, and Yummy World Party at Picnic Palace.
I know you know that last one, Sanchez.
Quick note, I'm also drinking White Tide Belgian White, which is the Aldi brand Blue Moon.
Oh, Aldi has craft beer now?
It's
Wow.
not
That's
craft beer.
phenomenal.
They do not sell domestics, so they have their own in-house off-brand domestics.
That's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me the names of those games again, please.
Sanchez, you are not getting this right. Why are you asking
Oh my
for the
god, no!
question again?
Just no. I need to hear it in a sentence and like the etymology, like.
The adventure game series from Cosmos, so not just one adventure game game,
Okay.
an entire line. Archaeology, the card game, Gingerbread House, Yummy World Party at Picnic Palace.
Holy crap!
I own archaeology. I should know this, but I
Yeah,
don't.
you should know this one. Yeah.
Gingerbread House is the only one I recognize, and I have a guess based on what I know about the game.
I'll go to
I'll be right
James
back. I'm going to
after-
my closet.
Yeah, I don't know. I do not know this. James.
James, you got a guess?
A Phil Walker Harding?
Yeah.
That is correct.
Nice job, James.
Dang it. I wish we were in different seats, Sanchez.
I know.
I probably won't know mine, so don't feel
Dude,
bad.
on this side, man. Total sweat.
Next one is for Jason. and we'll see if you get this one. God's Playground, Rocket Men, Mythotopia, 1630-something.
Martin Wallace.
Good job, man.
Bingo!
Yeah.
I know that one. I know that one thanks to Dylan, I think. Dylan posted in the Discord about, was it you, Dylan, about a game giveaway for a current game, and they were also giving away a crappy old copy of Rocket Man?
It wasn't me. But
It wasn't you. It must have been somebody else.
also,
but-
1630-something has got to be one of the funniest year names for a game ever.
I've not heard of that one.
Yeah, it's only got like 80 ratings last time I checked. I've looked at it many times. I think I have it in my wants for trade just because of the name. Next goes to James, correct?
Yep.
Dice Masters, Trains and Stations, XCOM the board game, the Munchkin collectible card game.
Oh my gosh, what? I don't know who did XCOM, and that's like probably the most notable one in there. Stations. I'm gonna go with something wacky like Albin Viard.
Eric Lang is
Yep.
actually the answer.
Yeah.
All right. To Cameron. Let's
Are we still at
We've
0
got-
points?
still at 0 to 4, but the
Oh,
final
good.
category gives you a lot of chance for wiggle room.
Okay,
All
here we go,
right.
Sanchez. Keep the faith. Keep the faith.
Cameron, your games are Zany Penguins, SOS Titanic, Dice Town, Sheeps. Sheep is spelled with 3 Z's because they were sleeping.
Not to be confused with the other.
Oh, that was it.
Sheeps.
Just those games.
Those are the
Those
games.
4, yep. You get 4
Well,
games.
Those games were obviously designed by Mr. Alan Moon, of course.
Alan Moon was on the original draft, but it is actually Bruno Cathala.
Yeah.
Ah,
And SOS
Oh,
Titanic has been long
gonna
out
be
of
your
print,
second
and
guess.
Shucks.
yeah, it was gonna be my second guess, of course.
SOS Titanic is currently on Kickstarter, actually.
It was Sheeps that put me in that direction.
Big help, yeah.
I think John Gets Games just did Sheeps on one of his podcast episodes.
Did he really?
I think so.
That's
I think he
hilarious.
did. I could be wrong. There's a lot of sheep games out there, after all.
Back to Sanchez for the final question.
You got
All right,
this.
go.
You got this, Sanchez.
Prophecy, that's a question. Star Trek Frontiers, Babes in the Wood.
The worst part about this that nobody can hear is Chris nodding on all these categories. He knows every one of them.
Yeah.
Because
Now-
he bought all these games.
I know this one.
He has all these games. Like,
And I've never heard of them because we've never played them.
no, they're still on his shelf collecting dust.
Prophecy is coming up in a review, actually.
There we go. I like that.
Oh
Sanchez,
man,
you got no hope.
I got 0. Okay, yeah, I'm out. I tapped.
He's out. He taps. Chris, you
Damn.
want to take it?
Vlad Kavatal.
Correct.
I had no
Yeah,
idea
so-
that combination of syllables came out with that name. Like,
So far, has this lived up to expectations? Is it as difficult as you expected it to be, or more
It's-
difficult?
It's plenty
More
difficult so
difficult.
far.
it
Really
is way more
difficult.
difficult.
Well, have fun with this last one because I think it's a little bit easier, actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Let's go.
The
What's our
category
name?
is
Like SAT
recent
rules?
releases.
Oh, no.
Oh, boy. The hotness. The
It's just going to
hotness.
make
Both
us feel
for
worse when we
Chris.
get it wrong.
Both Hidden Gems and Dads on a Map are known for their love of dusty games with an average BGG score well under 7. But what about the latest hits? What about the games the youngsters are playing? In this category, I am looking for the highest ranked games released since 2019. We go until 10 of the top 20 recent releases are spoken for, or until 10 wrong answers are given.
Oh, boy. I'm so bad at these. All right.
So we
10,
start-
We want the
Yes.
10. We want the top 20 most highly rated games since 2019.
Correct. And I have all of the 20 listed. And we actually begin the turn order. It resets if necessary. And we have least points goes first. So we are actually beginning with James.
Go, James.
Sounds like a lot of pressure. Like I gotta calibrate
Sounds like a
my
catch-up
brain.
mechanism to me.
It is a catch-up mechanism. And I know Hidden Gems are not fans of those. But it came in handy here.
So I got to calibrate myself to 2019. So this is pre-COVID, right? We're pre-COVID and on. So I'm going to go with Wingspan.
Bingo! First one for Dome.
Let's go Stonemeyer.
Great
Go
one.
Jamie. Chris, you got a pick?
I'm going to have to think because that was the one I was going to say. Let me think.
I knew this would be a good category.
Sanchez, we got a point, baby.
I know. I'm so happy.
I told you this is where you can come back.
With 20 points, apparently.
This is a tough one because there's one thing to say about being an old dad is time starts to really meld together, right?
Mhm.
So my brain just has to first try to separate what is 2019 versus before it, really. Like, you don't want to say something from 2017. It's not going to be on the list.
There are a lot running through my head that I think are older than 2019. That's the problem. I'm going to take a bit of a gamble here because I'm just not sure because this is a pretty new game, but I feel like it's really shot up the charts. I feel like I've seen it high on BGG. I was surprised at how high it was. I'm going to go with Lost Ruins of Arnak.
That is correct.
Ooh, nice one.
I don't have the score. I don't have the actual ratings. It did break the top 100, though.
Okay. So, Dylan, I'm looking for games that are 2019 plus that are on BGG
They're the
top 100.
20 highest rated games from 2019 and newer.
Okay. So
pretend BGG only existed from 2019 and on,
Okay.
which is
Yeah, so-
pretty much the reality we live in, and then
Yep.
pick the 20 top games.
Okay, so Jaws of the Lion.
Correct.
Nice, man. Yeah.
All right. We
Nice
go to
work,
Jason.
Sanchez.
Oh man, I have a suspicion this is maybe before 2019, but I'm going to go with it anyway because it's my best guess. Everdell.
That is before 2019.
Oh, wow. Feels like a good guess. I was considering that.
If I'm thinking correctly, it was 2017 because I remember when the rest of the Cardboard Reality picked it up, and I hadn't played it until 2018. We go to James.
I'm going to go with the recently reviewed by Dylan St. Clair, Beyond the Sun.
Ooh.
That is incorrect.
Come on, I gave you the plug, man. Like, just give me the point.
I appreciate the plug very much. Check that out on Board Game Quest. We're on to Cameron.
All right. I'm going to go with Just One.
That is incorrect.
Oh, man.
That's a good pick, though.
That was a great pick.
Man,
Back
it's really hard to
to
calibrate
Sanchez.
yourself.
All right, let's go with, 2019. Let's go with Gloomhaven.
I think it's too old.
Incorrect.
That's what I thought. What, 2018?
2018, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like January of 2018. I remember when
Mm-hmm.
my friend Scott got his copy.
Yeah, I was like, it's close. I was just like, okay.
So Chris is next, but before we go on, we've got 3 correct answers of the 20, 4 wrong answers, so you need 6 more wrong answers as a collective before the category ends. And the current score is 5-2 with Hidden Gems in the lead.
Oh, James, come on. We can take this, dog. We can.
Chris,
We
what you got?
better start getting them right if we're going to take anything.
Man, I'm having a hard time.
It's so funny watching you all struggle about games that everyone else talks about.
Right?
I'm going to go. This is too new. It's not going to be right, but that's all I can think of. I don't want to slow us down. I'm going to go with Praga Kapu Regni.
Incorrect. I think it may have broke the top 500,
Too new.
but too new, yeah. Now we're to, is it James again?
Yep, it
Yeah.
is.
James, what you got?
Man, I'm going to go Pax Pamir 2nd edition.
That is correct.
Ooh.
Let's go. Let's go, Cole.
Nice.
All right, Jason.
Let's go Hadrian's Wall.
Incorrect. But I like the guess. That's one I kind of want to try. It just seems fascinating.
It's pretty
Yeah.
new.
Yeah.
Figured it's probably too new, but
Sanchez.
Let's go with Root.
Incorrect. Came out in 2018.
No.
I was already
The
celebrating
fake
that
out.
one.
He was celebrating early.
Oh, dude, I was 100% on that one.
I thought that was.
I did.
That was one.
Oh. I mean,
Seven-
Root Underworld expansion.
No expansion, young man. We're at 7 wrong answers, 4 correct. Dome has 3, Hidden Gems 5. Back to Cameron.
Man, we're catching up too.
All right. I'm going to try Sagrada.
2017 release.
Ah!
That is incorrect.
Good guess.
I do like the guess, yeah. James,
All right, I'm gonna riff off of Cameron's rolling right. Rolling guess. I'm gonna go with Railroad Inc.
Incorrect. So we're
People
at
buy
9.
like 75 expansions of this game, and it's not up there.
I know, right? And now we're back to Chris. Chris, you gonna get one on the board? You gonna?
This is going to be the most painful reveal when Dylan reveals these. It's going to hurt so bad.
Oh,
I had
know,
one
I
come
can't
to
wait.
mind. I'm going to go with
ahead.
Viscounts of the West Kingdom.
Did I miss that one? Hold on.
Dylan,
Now,
will play some thinking
I-
music. Dun, 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 dun.
yeah, because I thought about you say that. I'm like, that may have been, but I kind of don't think so. Was that the
If
newest
he's wrong,
of the
I have a guess
West
now.
Kingdom games?
James, did you just sing the Wii lobby
yes.
music?
That's exactly what it was. It's the Wii lobby music. The me maker.
It's
I
such
think
a
is,
banger.
Yeah.
Oh man, why is
It's
it
a
in my
banger.
Well, it is. So my youngest child, he loves listening to anything from slightly old technology. He'll watch a YouTube video that's just startup sounds of consoles, the GameCube startup sound,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Wii startup sound. He'll literally just go to Spotify and listen to Wii music tracks that's like the Wii shop. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun. Like, this
50
kid
hours of Stardew Valley.
Exactly. So these things just get baked into my brain at certain point.
All right, Dylan. You got an
Dylan
answer?
is hard at work. Dylan's assistant, which is himself, is crunching the
At
numbers
least I'm making him think a little bit.
to see if this game
That
gets into the
is just outside the top 20.
woo.
It was currently at rank number 192 of the overall.
Dang.
All right, Sanchez.
All right, you guys ready?
you got to keep us
No,
alive.
that's the 10th one. That's the
That's
10th
the game.
incorrect
Oh,
answer.
that was
We are
10.
done.
That's right.
I'll take
You
it.
basically got to pull a train game and say a wrong answer to end it and get the W, right?
I kind of
right,
want to see
what are
Sanchez
these answers?
try. Sanchez, give it a shot. Just throw one out there. It doesn't matter if you get this right or wrong. You'll get a freebie.
Oh man.
I mean, I was going to say architects after Chris said
or Paladins. Yeah.
Vikings
Or
or whatever it
Paladins,
is.
right? That's what I was like. West Arc. Yeah.
Paladins
No.
is on there.
Mm.
Yeah, because we. No,
Was
but I want to go.
architects pre 2019?
It hasn't reached that high.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
He said Everdale. Everdale was already the answer. Yeah.
Sanchez, you're done. If you don't have
Done.
answers.
Done. Just give me the answers.
Yeah,
Just
let's
give me
hear
the
him.
What
answers.
about
Dylan.
Teotihuacan?
Oh, that's a good one.
That is not. That was 2018.
Man,
Dang.
time
Scythe?
flies.
Scythe is like
Scythe?
2016. All right. Maracaibo,
Mm.
Okay.
Marvel Champions,
Okay.
Boo.
The Crew, Quest for Planet 9,
That's a good pick.
Oh, that hurts.
Dune Imperium,
Sanchez, come on, man. You're all about the Dune.
I am.
Clank
Spice.
Legacy,
Oh, kid.
Ah.
Barrage,
Huh.
Yeah, it's a good pick.
Oh yeah, that would have been good.
On Mars,
Yeah. Really?
I thought that was older in 2019.
I
Wow.
just didn't think it would make it.
Eclipse, Second Dawn,
Yeah, I'm out.
Tainted Grail,
I thought about doing one of those big Kickstarters, but I just didn't know which one actually succeeded.
Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle Earth, big FFG game.
Ooh,
Yep.
Yes.
I need to try that one.
It looks really cool. I've never played any of those that use the app like Mansions of Madness, but it looks really awesome.
Yeah.
Isle of Cats.
Yeah.
Isle of Cats.
Oh, it's a great, great title. Parks.
No, I'm just thinking about the time that
Oh,
people
Parks.
gave that
I've
out
played
on Reddit.
Yeah,
Parks.
that's a good one. Yeah.
Parks? Oh,
Cartographers.
I
I
almost said
almost
that.
said that.
Oh yeah.
I thought about going with that.
One of Jason's favorites.
Yeah, I love
That's a
that
good game. I like that game.
not
Res
too favorite, though.
Arcana.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Tom Lehman.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, It's a Wonderful World.
Yep, I've
So-
heard of that.
Those are the.
Is that our final round, or is there like a final
That's
final
it.
round?
There's,
that we
oh,
could
there's
try to-
nothing
Come
else.
on,
That
I
was
want
your-
to try
that
to
was your
win.
catch-up mechanism. That was your catch-up mechanism.
That's good,
So,
Dylan. Good stuff.
That was awesome, Dylan.
Thanks, Dylan.
Well,
That hurt.
thank
That hurt a
you.
lot.
I actually had another category that I cut, but yeah. And the funny thing was, I actually didn't think these were that bad. I write questions for things, and I'm just like, oh, good grief. What? And then it happens in like the actual game show segment. I'm like, well, this was too hard again. Every single time.
And I gave you all those clicks on Board Game Quest to like research all this. This is terrible. I want my clicks back.
No, that last category was great as a juxtaposition to our focus, collectively. Was hilarious. And there's going to be people listening. I can name some from our Discord, like Camden and Derek are going to be yelling into their phones or cars or wherever they're listening, going, come on, you guys. Just look at the BGG hotness once in a while. You don't have to play them.
Looking over, did Sanchez get a single correct answer?
I mean,
No, I got
Jaws of the Lion.
right?
Oh,
Hey.
Jaws of the Lion. I had
Because
to.
I'm not a reviewer. I know that one.
Yeah.
all right. Well, let's wrap this thing up. Dylan, you can hang out here for this if you'd like to.
Cool.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you, first of all, for coming on the show, joining us, and preparing that trivia segment. That was a lot of fun. I'll let you say again where people can find you if they want to check out more of your work.
Find me on Board Game Quest. I don't review that often, but I have a lot of stuff in the pipeline coming by the end of the year. And so, yeah, be looking for me. I may even start reviewing some dusty old Euros just to make you all happy.
I hope so.
Nice.
I would
Love
love
it.
to hear that. As for us, Dads on a Map, you can find us at our usual places. Twitter at Dads on a Map, Instagram Dads on a Map. We just launched a website after delaying for forever, dadsonamap.com, where you can find our episodes, information, a link to our Discord. We're on Patreon. If you want to support us, we would love your support. And of course, we have our DomeCon Live event coming up in just a couple weeks in Kansas City that we're very excited about.
Awesome.
So I can't wait. Dylan's going to be there, and who knows, we might even play some more games, game show bits at that event as well. I'll turn it over to Hidden Gems if you guys want to tell people where they can find you and keep up with everything Hidden Gems.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, James. And thanks, Dads on a Map, James and Sanchez, for inviting us to be a part of your show and collaborate together to create an episode. This has been a lot of fun. If you like what we're doing over at Hidden Gems, of course, we would love to hear from you. Reach out to us on our BGG Guild. You can also find us on Instagram, where we're particularly active at hiddengems.games. We also have a website, which I've realized recently we do not typically plug on our podcast, but that's at hiddengemsboardgamepodcast.com. We always post our episodes there, and it has convenient links to our social media and our BGG Guild. So definitely thanks a lot for having us on this collaboration super show episode.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah, this has been a blast. I'm very happy that we got together to do this. I know we talked probably a lot longer than we intended to about the state of the hobby and all that, and it was a blast getting to sit in live for a Hidden Gem style review and Cameron's read of the intro and all that stuff. It was really fun. I'm glad we got a chance to sit down and get to know each other.
Yeah, it's been a blast, and hope everyone out there listening enjoyed this episode of Hidden Gems and Dads on a Map Super Show. And for now, I'm your host, Cameron.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jason.
I'm James.
Now Sanchez.
And
Peace.
don't forget him. He's Dylan.
Oh, I'm still Dylan.
He's
That's
still here.
right, baby. You're
Oh my
still
God, I'm still here.
All right. We'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.
Thank you.